Bruce Lee's visionary insight. Bruce Lee is known worldwide as a martial arts legend and an iconic film star. But there's more to his legacy than just high-flying kicks and unforgettable fight scenes. What most people don't realize is that Bruce Lee was also a visionary, a man who predicted the future of martial arts long before the world even knew what was coming. In the 1960s and 70s, martial arts were steeped in tradition, with rigid styles that defined how fighters trained and fought. But Bruce Lee saw beyond that. He understood that the future of martial arts wasn't in following one strict method or tradition. It was in being adaptable, in combining the best techniques from all forms of combat to create something new, something unstoppable. But how exactly did Bruce Lee foresee the evolution of combat sports? Let's dive into his groundbreaking philosophy and how his predictions became the blueprint for modern-day martial arts. Breaking away from tradition. In Bruce Lee's time, martial arts were heavily rooted in tradition. Schools and practitioners followed rigid doctrines, whether it was karate, kung fu, or judo. Each art had its own rules and limitations. But Bruce Lee questioned the idea of being confined to one specific style. He saw a problem. What happens when your style fails in real combat? Bruce Lee believed that clinging to one martial art was like wearing blinders, ignoring the full spectrum of possibilities available in a fight. Instead of being stuck in one style, Lee advocated for an open-minded approach. He famously said, "Absorb what is useful, discard what is not, add what is uniquely your own." This philosophy shook the martial arts world. Bruce Lee became a trailblazer, challenging centuries-old traditions and advocating for an adaptable mindset, something that later became foundational to the concept of mixed martial arts. Jeet Kune Do, the blueprint for modern MMA. Bruce Lee didn't just talk about revolutionizing martial arts, he created a system to prove it. In 1967, he developed his own martial art called Jeet Kune Do, which means the way of the intercepting fist. But it wasn't a traditional martial art with a rigid set of rules. Instead, Jeet Kune Do was a philosophy of combat that blended techniques from various martial arts, everything from Western boxing to Wing Chun Kung Fu and fencing. Lee rejected the idea of one style fits all. Jeet Kune Do was about efficiency and practicality in real combat. Sound familiar? This cross-training and blending of fighting styles is exactly what modern mixed martial arts, MMA, is built on. From UFC champions to local MMA gyms, fighters today are training across disciplines, striking, grappling, submissions, just like Bruce Lee envisioned when he developed Jeet Kune Do more than 50 years ago. The concept of fluidity in combat. One of Bruce Lee's most famous teachings was, "Be like water." But what did he mean by that? For Bruce Lee, water was the perfect metaphor for combat. Water is formless, adaptable, and can take on any shape or obstacle. In the same way, a martial artist should be fluid, able to adapt to any situation or opponent. Lee believed that being rigid in a fight was a recipe for defeat. Instead, a fighter should be able to flow between different techniques, striking when the opportunity arises, defending when necessary, and switching between offense and defense seamlessly. This principle of fluidity is now one of the core tenets of modern martial arts. Whether it's transitioning from stand-up striking to ground grappling, or quickly adapting to an opponent's movements, the ability to be like water is a critical skill for today's martial artists, a skill that Bruce Lee emphasized long before it became mainstream. The legacy of Bruce Lee's philosophy. Today, the world of martial arts looks very different from what it did in Bruce Lee's time. Mixed martial arts, or MMA, is one of the fastest growing sports globally, and its fighters are some of the most versatile athletes on the planet. But if you look closely, you can trace the roots of this evolution back to Bruce Lee. His philosophy of adapting, evolving, and rejecting rigid systems has become the foundation of modern martial arts. Lee's ideas about cross-training, being open-minded, and using whatever works best in a real fight are now common practice for any serious fighter. Whether it's a UFC champion or a self-defense enthusiast, Bruce Lee's influence is everywhere. Bruce Lee didn't just predict the future of martial arts, he actively shaped it. His vision continues to live on, inspiring fighters around the world to embrace change and always seek improvement.